All right, I think we're live. Hello, everybody. Thank you all for joining. I see Cassidy and Henri already in the audience. Thank you all for joining. We're excited about today's show, especially because today is the first time we're testing out. So if you're joining on LinkedIn, this is our first attempt at actually broadcasting out to LinkedIn as well. So thanks to everybody who's joining on YouTube. Thanks to everybody who might be joining on LinkedIn as well. So we're excited about today's show. But before we get started and invite our guest on, I'm going to introduce myself. I'm Brian Rinaldi. I'm a developer experience engineer at LaunchDarkly. I've been in DevRel for 13 plus years. And yeah, that's me.
And I'm Erin Staples. I am also in developer experience at LaunchDarkly. I have been in DevRel for five-ish. We say ish. There's some adjacencies there. Years.
Yeah, everything's ish here. We're DevRel ish.
A lot of ish.
5-ish. I've been in DevRel for 13-ish years. Which is ish everything. Okay, so
no exacts.
So I want to also thank. So we have a sponsor for DevRelish, and I want to thank them. So Data Protocol is like Netflix, but for your developer community. You can create these interactive videos and be able to actually have people. You can see the kind of console there where they can interact and do things with the videos. It's really cool platform for you to kind of deliver content to your communities, really professionally done videos and things like that. So I think if you're interested, if you run a developer community, please check out Data Protocol. And thanks, Data Protocol, for your support. So with that, we're going to invite our guest, Nnenna, on stage. Hi, Nnenna.
Hello.
Welcome to our DevRelish show. So first of all, tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do, where you're from, etc.
Yes. So my name is Nnenna Ndukwe, and I'm a developer advocate at Unleash. And I was born in Houston and, moved to Boston, I would say, I don't know how many years ago, maybe 7-ish years ago. And, the goal for me was to get into tech and to kind of figure it out along the way. And I eventually did, and I'll dig into that more. But right now I'm at Unleash. I actually just started a couple of weeks ago, which is super exciting. And focusing on feature flag management and with more of a focus on the open source community that they've done a really good job of building out to enable developers with integrating feature flags into the whole software dev lifecycle, which you all know quite a bit about with the roles.
Yeah, I was saying, I think we both know a little bit about feature flags as well. We with you, since you.
They're making a lot of assumptions here, y'all.
So I think between when we initially scheduled this and now you ended up at Unleash, which is, for anybody unfamiliar, it's the competitor of where we're both working now. So, but we're friendly competition, right? So
yes, we're all trying to help developers, raise awareness about what feature flags are. So, it's all going in the better direction for engineering and companies as a whole. Was that diplomatic enough?
Yeah. That was perfectly.
There's no punches thrown, so we're good. I'm still learning what a feature flag is.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I've been doing it 2 years, 2+ years, 2-ish. I guess everything's got to be ish now. And I hadn't used a feature flag once when I joined. I was I didn't even know what this stuff was.
Oh, yeah, I do feel like I had a leg up, because I was a LaunchDarkly customer before I joined, and actually had used them to save our butt. There was a few times that I definitely was like, crap, something broke, undo. But it was very much like the undo crap, something's breaking button.
Yeah, I had experience with using LaunchDarkly as well at O'Reilly Media. And there was an internal engineering team that was responsible for actually integrating it into all the different engineering team repos. But it definitely helped when it came to project planning and just figuring out, okay, what do we want to release, when, and to whom, for how long, all of that. Great experience with that. And that was 4 years of that.
Nice. Yeah. So you all see, we were going to talk about a little bit about, since you're both starting new positions, about starting, kind of the challenges of starting in a new role as DevRel. But I think you all clearly coming in with better from a better place than I was when I joined LaunchDarkly, because I'm like, yeah, I mean, I really know nothing about feature flags. I think the most I knew was they made me do homework. And I'm sorry, the lawn guys are like kind of going around in the back today. They decided to wait until the show started to kind of.
They always do that. They're definitely watching.
They do. I think you're right. I think he's purposely like wandering around back here. He's like, I see he's on camera. I'm going to get on there. So yeah, I hadn't, other than the homework, that was my first time ever using a feature flag. So yeah, but it's feature flags at the heart of the concept to be. So okay, so with that, tell us a little bit about your background as a developer, like what got you specifically interested in DevRel, like what made you choose that career path?
Yeah, so with engineering, that was my background. That has been my background, a full stack web development, and that was in medtech, fintech, what else? Ed, media tech, and different programming languages and frameworks and tools that I've had experience with over time in those different industries. But along my journey of actually becoming a software developer, and when I actually taught myself how to code and like went through a coding boot camp, had this different combination of non-traditional pathways into engineering. From the beginning, I had documented my journey, my experience, and that looked like, a blog that I started of like, okay, things I learned these past few weeks in the coding bootcamp, or I recently attended this awesome event at the Google office here in Boston, and volunteering locally and getting involved in the local tech community here in Boston. There were so many things that I was doing and documenting and inadvertently sharing with the tech community and globally on social media. I was participating and speaking at tech events and things like that. And I didn't realize that there was actually a career that aligned with being a technical person and also turning around and sort of like packaging this information that you're learning along the way, like #learning in public, and sharing that with the world. I didn't realize that there was an actual career path that would merge those two and complement both the technical and creative and social sides. And I kind of found out about DevRel through Roselle, actually. Wasn't she recently on the show? Or
yeah, she's
a
couple episodes.
Yeah. So
we've had Roselle on like she's presented. She actually presented last week, I think it was, on Web 5. Yeah. So yeah, she's one of our favorite people.
Yeah, she's amazing. And we've both known each other since the beginning or before careers really like began with software development and beyond. So hearing about DevRel from her, I was like, okay, Roselle is amazing, super smart, and has so many different types of skills and wants to be able to share that with others. I want to be able to do the same thing too. And that really means you're signing up to be a unicorn. And I have a lot of thoughts on, what DevRel is and how it's perceived from companies and all of that later. But that was that introduction to it. And I started to take it seriously, do a bit more research on it. I bought books, and then I got a mentor, Kurt Kempel, who began to teach me about content creation and developing a framework and a strategy, and kind of reducing chances of like analysis paralysis and just like moving forward with executing on things that can really help to enable developers in very dynamic ways. And that was that gave me that fire, that fuel to be like, okay, I'm really going to try this. I really want to do this. And if I can find a way to exercise these different skill sets, it's not about being a perfect person and an expert in all of these. It's about the effort, because you understand the goal is you want to help, you want to enable developers. I think that is something I try to use to ground myself and to push myself forward in DevRel. And it's been exciting. And it's been less than a year actually since I've made this transition, but there's been so much that's happened along the way, and I'm thankful for that.
Yeah. So you were full stack before, like you're formally trained engineer.
Yeah.
I'm always like, part of me like doing this, especially being in a full stack role right now. Like I think previous DevRel things, I always had a language that I got to play in. So it was like, I never had to be truly full stack, but accidentally became full stack because I never went to 2 places that use the same language. So I did the chaotic route.
Wow.
Don't recommend, do not recommend that route.
Spicy.
There's some weird learning. Yeah, there's some learning gaps that Brian gets a lot of my dumb questions like, what? From learning gaps, from self-taught chaosness. But like, what, it was just that wanting to be able to do different things that moved you into DevRel from engineering. Is that what I'm getting right?
Yes, that's exactly it. I didn't, and I don't want to downplay what it means to be an engineer. So I want to be careful with my wording here, but I didn't want to just code. And that's kind of part of my personality. Like my mind is moving 1,000 miles an hour. I'm interested in so many things. I have these hyper fixations. And growing up, it was like, I'm interested in so many things. I want to do so many things, but we're supposed to pick one career. We're supposed to get really, really good and be an expert at one very specific thing. And that was, the model that I understood what it meant to be an adult and to have a career or to have a skill set or a talent. And I feel like DevRel was that space where it meant that you have the green light to explore and be many things at once. And that can be celebrated, and that companies and people who might potentially use the product of the company you're working at can benefit from you having many interests. So that's something I really wanted to explore. And I also think that it's, there's so many aspects of DevRel where the skills that you're developing, whether it's speaking or content creation, helping to build a community in some way, all of those things are transferable skills in my mind. Those are skills that you can take with you anywhere in the world doing anything. And so if you can have those, like writing as well, like if you can have those and be pretty decent at it, I think you can do anything almost, or many things.
Yeah, and I think to your point, having done DevRel for a while, I've always found that people who really love to code, because it's not putting down being just a developer. Like there's nothing wrong with that. Like honestly, the people who really love to just code and are like, just passionate about that tend, I've found, to not do great in DevRel. It's not because they obviously have the technical skills, they just don't enjoy it because they're like, oh, I'm gonna be a DevRel and I'm gonna actually just get to experiment with new stuff and all this other stuff. I'm gonna be coding all that, and I've even had conversations with people like exploring it, being like, it's maybe 25% of the job, and sometimes that's being generous, is actually coding. Like most of the job is not about coding. So if you're just passionate about like being in front of your laptop or whatever and just coding something all day, like you may not like this career all that much.
Well, and I think there's also people that we know, like Allie. I was actually talking to her because she went from being DevRel back into being an engineer, and she's a formally trained engineer. And I was talking to her about that transition, and I was like, yeah, I would get stressed having tickets each day. Like I'm very like today I've like hit a head, like started banging my head against something, and I was like, I'm gonna go play in docs for a little bit because I don't, this hurts my head right now and I don't want to do it. So I'm just going to do something else and I'll come back to it with a fresh brain. But I know some people are very much, they want that consistent ticket in, ticket out, which I think personally sounds a little like hell. It's not for me.
Yeah. I also personally, like, I do not miss having to put things back. like and having to be on call,
Oh, I
so
don't miss.
oh my God, it's like, yeah, that part, now I'm like, well, I just mostly code demos. And
Right,
if
right.
it's
Yeah.
broken, like nobody's calling me in the middle of the night, hey, this demo is not working. Although we do get kind of roped into like other things that are more production-ish, to put it that way, like the boot demos and things like that we worked on. But the point being, I think coding is it does give you that opportunity to be like a lot of different things. In fact, you're not going to succeed if you aren't doing a lot of different things, in my opinion. So like if you just like want to code all day, I don't know. I don't think you'll like DevRel.
And one thing I like about that, I try to remind myself, is that there are different people meant for different things. So those people who just want to be super focused on coding only, they are people who have the potential to be great at it, or they already are, right? And they're very useful in that particular department. We need those people to build incredible things so that we can then take parts of that and repackage it and bring that, to developers, engineers all over, to, make it interesting and keep them interested to want to adopt it, utilize it in their systems, whatever. So I'm just like, I'm very happy that there are people who want to only do that, because that's what helps make my job easier.
Yeah. I mean, they build the platforms that we're talking about. So
I like
they're
to
willing
joke
to do
and
that.
lovingly say, not to put down other DevRels, but I do like to lovingly say that DevRel is kind of like you're the crash test dummy sometimes.
Yes.
Like you are the living crash test dummy of whatever you're working on. I feel today's a very example of a crash test dummy thing. But yeah.
Yeah, you're the first user of many of the things. Yeah, for sure. That's to me, that's one of the fun things I enjoy about it.
Yeah.
It's always something new, and I think kind of transitioning to that talk of, well, you're both going into new roles, but I think DevRel is that can be tough. It has specific challenges, but DevRel is also like, I'm constantly having to learn something new, because it's like, okay, I need to focus on this thing, and it's not something I know. I mean, I've even submitted talks on things. I'm like, okay, I don't know this topic, but I will by the time I get there.
I have definitely, yes.
I love that.
Yeah, I regret it every time I do it, but I've done it.
I have been in that position at my last role. Actually, one of the talks I'm most proud of giving was one of those situations of heads downing and learning and focusing on a topic for months. So like I did a lot of it last year, doing a lot of reinforcement learning, a lot of machine learning, and a lot of but I was sitting there going, I've never trained a model in my entire life. Like, I don't know what you're expecting me to do, because I wouldn't know anything.
Yeah.
And it was like, CFPs do, theoretically, we can figure it out. But yeah, I do distinctly remember going, I have no idea, like getting the talk acceptance email and going, I am so screwed.
And then what happened?
Cassidy, I don't know that I haven't changed that. I think I am still young and stupid, and I still do that a lot of the times. Honestly, it's a good forcing mechanism, because I don't want to look like an idiot. So
yeah, I've done exactly what Cassidy mentions there. I've done exactly that. I'm like, I want to learn this, and I haven't had the time to learn it. So I'm going to submit this talk, and then I'm going to have to learn it, right?
Yes.
So I did learn it, but like I said, every single time I've done it, I've regretted it. I'm like, why did I do this? It's so hard to develop a talk to begin with, that like, developing a talk and trying to learn something, and then you get up there, and then, of course you'll get up there, and all of a sudden it's like sitting front row is the person who's like the well-known expert on this topic. And you're like,
it's always then. It's so crazy how that happens. I completely relate to it. It's such a high pressure way of trying to learn something and to force yourself to grow and expand. Like when I made this career transition, I don't recommend this to many people. When I made my career transition from engineering to DevRel, it wasn't just that changed. There were multiple layers. There was also from ed media tech into cybersecurity, right? And then there was also a larger company to a smaller company of like 30 people. And so that's like 3 levels of an adjustment to make. Do not recommend. Try to keep it at 2 to 1, just so that you can, feel confident about slowly like learning and adjusting to something. But I do believe, there were some talks I had a talk that I spoke at KubeCon EU at Amsterdam, and it was on like best practices for like security, software security for production ready containers. Didn't know much about containers. And somehow I needed to learn enough to be able to convince people that I understood the best practices and to turn that around into a talk. And of course, the people in the crowd were people who have had years of experience in the container space and the cybersecurity space. But I did what I could. And and I think that process continues to happen, or I guess I get presented with that opportunity to learn something in a relatively short amount of time, enough to be able to turn around and find a way to talk about it and make it interesting.
It was very, I know, I remember asking the creator of Fast API like the 1001 intro questions that are on the documentation page, and just feeling like stupid, being like, oh, you actually created, like, you made this. I'm gonna go shut up and like erase all of that. Wish I could undo that. That was really cringe. But it's also like the nicest human ever. So, but yeah, I think one of the questions I always have, because we've had most people on the show are actually self-taught or come from non-developer backgrounds. So
awesome.
Coming from a developer background, like what do you wish that people would know? Or like, where do you think is missing that gives you a unique perspective?
What do I think is missing from
DevRel currently? Yeah.
Ooh, what do I think is missing from DevRel? That is interesting, because it's the thing that includes so many things. So I'm not sure. I'm not sure I know what is missing yet. And I don't know. The way that I look at it is that it does encompass so many things. If anything, what is missing is actually the industry's catching up to the power of it, honestly. That's a good one. Yeah. So
for sure.
I remember there was a point in time where I was considering making a transition into product management from engineering. And one of the things that stopped me or made me hesitant was because it seemed difficult to be able to quantify and measure success. And in engineering, it's a lot more obvious. There's how many tickets did you get done? How many pull requests did you make and review? And did the thing ship? And it's like, there are some more direct ways to be able to measure whatever success could look like as an engineer. But somehow I still felt like DevRel could be the thing I could try, without really realizing that it wasn't the easiest thing to measure, to quantify and define what success looks like. And I think that's an issue that many people in DevRel might be facing once they actually get the job and have to do it. And if the company is not prepared to establish what that means, then things can feel a little shaky. And so I think that is something that's an ongoing issue. And there's books on these kind of things as well, I believe, like the business value of developer relations and how to really advocate for yourself and define those terms as early as possible. But it's an effort on many ends that come from many people in order to do that.
Yeah, speaking of the business value of developer relations, that's Mary Thingvall's book, right? Yeah, she was a guest too. So
awesome.
She's amazing.
Yes.
Yeah, that episode with her was simply like, it's one of those you got to go back and listen. She's just, even beyond what's in her book, which is amazing, is like, she's just a wealth of information on that topic. So speaking of, I want to transition to talking about so you're both in new roles. Like it's, every new role, no matter what kind of job you have, is a challenge, right? Like it's always a challenge. There's always a lot. But I think in DevRel, it can be especially tough for even relating to that metrics thing. Like, how do I make an impact? And every company's different. It's like, it's not like, I'm a developer. I go into a new company. It's like, oh, here's the tasks I have to get done. Like, here's the things I have to code. I kind of know where I'm headed, but you come as a DevRel, it's like, okay, oh, by the way, this company does DevRel completely different than my last company did DevRel. What's important to them is different, and everything else. And then you have the challenges of learning whatever new tools or whatever you're representing. Okay, I'm speaking for you there. I want to hear from you, both of you, because you're both in that right now. Like, what are you feeling about it?
I mean, I'll personally say one of the biggest things is I came from a pretty one language environment. So like I came from machine learning, Python, data science. And even the libraries that I was using in Python were very data science related. I haven't deployed a Docker container at work yet, so I've not launched our tool in Docker. I know you can build things in Docker related to it, but haven't touched it. Where at my last role, it was like every single day, it was like, okay, let's start in containers. Let's hang out in that type of development. So and then we had reInvent right before my 30-day mark. So it was immediately being thrown into, I always joke of like learning. I haven't touched React in a while. I do know some React, but haven't touched it in a while. So I had to come in and be like, crap, this is a different. And I do remember like distinctly Cody, who's our manager, sending me a screenshot and he's like watching my Git commits and I'm like, please work. Why isn't this working? And he's like, you have a capitalization error. Like everything is technically correct, but I had missed a capitalization error in React. And I was like, this is so dumb. I'm so mad at this right now. Cause I was like feeling so frustrated and like defeated because I was like Googling it. I was ChatGPTing. I was like, everything about this stupid thing is correct, except I missed like a capital letter. And it was like, wow, that is annoying. So I think that the switch of tech stacks and even if you did come from a familiar tech stack, like I was working with our Python SDK today, there are still some nuances, like
nuances
of ways of working within that tech stack itself that are slightly different.
Yeah, that's something I want to hear more about because I want to know like what exactly, could you give an example of how it feels different?
Yeah. So I think a lot of it, so I was at a machine learning, like very much ML ops. So kind of like organization doing a lot of like, but I was doing like a lot of data cleanup, a lot of, I used Pydantic a lot. I was using Docker containers. I was doing that kind of work, building Docker containers, testing that. Spent a lot of my day in Hugging Face or looking at models or understanding that sort of thing, which you don't like feature flags. A lot of it is like front end stuff. So it's like, I went from doing very ops data and databases to, all right, we have a demo to build for reInvent. That's front end. I have not touched front end in a while. That's been a hot sec. And it's just, you forget how quickly those muscles, but then once starting to like actually work in it, it's also that there is also that flip side of like, it does every so often. I'm like, came back. It's there. It's still there. It's just had to kick the cobwebs off.
Yeah, it's been a while since I've touched React as well. And like one of the first tasks at my role at Unleash was like, okay, let's build a React tutorial, right? And that was like, okay, I'm really excited because I know React. Like I worked with it for years, but also it's been a while. So how much do I remember? How much of this is going to be muscle memory where I can just like, I feel like I can close my eyes and type, And it was a little shaky at first, but then there were some things that came back to me. And I feel like taking a break, honestly, from looking at it every single day when I was a full-time engineer it's nice to come back to it and feel like I have a more fresh perspective. And it's easier for some reason to Google search things. I've gotten a lot better at Google searching to find answers to problems now than I probably did being day in, day out, probably from some type of mental like tax or exhaustion that made it a little bit harder as a developer. But
now I rely on the Copilot chat.
Ooh, I need to get that.
The Copilot, I'm using Copilot.
Copilot chat is
Cody. So SourceGraph, because sometimes Copilot and Cody will argue with each other and they're neither one of them right. So I go back and forth. I do find myself, it's really funny because like I was pairing with another one of our colleagues before reInvent, and I was running the logs in a terminal. And like at my last role, like before my last role, you would have never seen me in a terminal. I would be like, no, not touching it. Don't like it.
Really?
I'm terrified of it. Did not want to work in it. And my last role I did, because I was more on that ops side, I really got, and I worked with someone who was a Vim Emacs user all the time. So they never wrote in VS Code. And I was like terrifying, like did one project in Vim and I like wanted to cry. It was so hard. My brain does not think about the way. But then I was like, learned how to use it for logs. And so when we were pairing before reInvent and I had terminal running for logs, like I had a coworker who was like, why are you, there's like a little terminal window in VS Code. And I was like, I know, but I don't like that one. I want to be able to see everything.
Yes.
All
yeah,
at
that
once.
coworker was me, by the way.
Oh, was that you? I thought it was Peter for a second.
No, it was me. I'm like, why do you need a terminal? Like, I never opened the actual.
I mean, everything like all in one page.
Yeah. I mean,
Also,
lots of people love the terminal, like because they can customize it in ways that it's not like as easy, I guess, in VS Code. I don't know.
Yeah,
it's true.
Like the other thing is like I'm seeing the comments of like not thinking about the problem is an unreasonably effective way to solve problem that only works if you have years and years and years of experience as a developer. Because like, can I do that with Python based problems? Yeah. Can I do that with like my personal site is Node handlebars? Like, yeah, my brain understands that structure. If you were like, Erin, you haven't touched React in 3 days, go figure it out again. I'd be like, yeah. All right, let me go back to it'd be Googling it again.
I think it's just, I'm going to show my biases here. It's a React thing. I mean, React is just.
We can blame React, right?
Like, yeah.
Please say it. Say it. I need to hear it.
It's so unnecessarily difficult and obtuse in ways that I find like I've used it plenty. I feel like mostly because I feel like I have to, but every time I do, I'm like, this. I know because my biggest complaint about React is always I know JavaScript. I've done JavaScript for ages, and somehow or another, I still don't know how to do the thing. And I could solve it in JavaScript. I can't always solve it in React. I'm like, because I'm not doing it the React way. Anyway, I just got spicy. It was time. Erin, you're usually the spicy relish person.
I know you're the spicy person today.
I'm spicy
I'm over here
today.
taking my React. I'm in the React.gg course right now, and I'm actually really liking that. But I think, I am jealous, like Brian, of like your experience and like, Nnenna. I'm like the part that I'm always like self-conscious, especially starting a new role, is like being self-taught. I have weird gaps. Like, so I'm like, many times I'm like, I can do this, or I'll know how to do certain things, but then there's certain things that I'm like, I have no, this is like, because I missed a lot of my learning was on the job or on a role. So I was learning on projects and never took a course, except for a semester of data journalism. So like asked me a lot about Matplotlib, which is not really.
God, I remember that.
Like Matplotlib isn't even really used anymore in data visualization. Last that I checked, like no one's really using it. But like I can make a cool chart with it if you want. So yeah, I don't have any formal experience, but that's like why when we had our professional development spend, I was like, I want to go be very intentional and take a course that has some of that fundamental things. And even again, early experiences, I had over-engineered something because that's the only way I knew how to do it. And then I'm like watching other people and I'm like, wow. I think also the other thing I say, being in a new role previously, I was always on a team of one or a team of two. So it was like either I never have had more than one teammate. So now I'm like, well, now I gotta spread my stupid questions across 4 other teammates.
Are you speaking of that, Nnenna? Are you how many? You have a bunch of colleagues there, or are you like the first DevRel? Or I don't even know. Tell us a little bit more about your new role.
Yeah, there's my manager who's head of DevRel, and then there's me, the developer advocate. And there's a community manager, and there's people who've done a lot of work in documentation that I get to rely on, who are now solely focused on engineering. And so there's a couple engineering teams and me and true. And so like there's a lot of work to obviously get done, but getting into this role and like trying to get settled in and adjusted and figure out like what is it that I'm going to be focusing my energy on. I'm mentally preparing myself for that context switching that's going to be happening a lot more frequently. When there are tutorials that need to be created in languages I have never even looked at, breathed near, nothing. And I need to figure out what exactly it is that I need to learn enough of about this programming language or this particular framework or tool to then create a tutorial utilizing it. Just having to merge so many different skills together and constantly do that with another programming language. Or I don't know if y'all worked with Rust before. That's like right, exactly. So like that's something I'm going to have to dive into at some point and create something based off of that. So it's like I try to think about what is the process, what is a framework to do that over and over again.
Yeah, I mean, so on that note, I think one of the things that I tend to do, I mean, I've always been, well, not always, I've been JavaScript focused for like a decade now, I think. So the story, what I had done front end and JavaScript when it was more of a jokey language. And then for a while I was doing ActionScript, if you all know what ActionScript is, because I was doing Flex and ActionScript and all this stuff. And then what I was working at Adobe, I was doing like basically DevRel-ish role at Adobe in focused on Flash and Flex. And then like one day to the next, because this was like when Flash basically died, it was like, boom, they're like, oh, by the way, now you're doing web platform and you're focused on JavaScript frameworks and JavaScript. And it was like, okay. And since then that's really where I've been. But I think, when we're working at platforms like we all are, that have support all kinds of languages, right? I think, I tend to focus on writing. I'm always writing my examples in JavaScript, but this is even another reason why I tend to avoid React, unless I'm doing a React specific example, right? Like is I want you to be able to understand it no matter what language you are. And I found that people can understand JavaScript if they're whatever kind of developer, Python developer, Ruby developer, whatever. Generally, like they see the syntax of a basic JavaScript application and they can more or less understand it. I mean, there's nuances, obviously, but like if you start throwing in additional complications like frameworks and things like that kind of complicate your ability to understand that code and do kinds of things that may not translate easily into another language, then your example suddenly becomes much more difficult to kind of be able to cross those different bridges for people with different language backgrounds.
That is
yeah, I was gonna say,
go ahead.
One of the things I think is really interesting to hear you say that is I like to think I'm language agnostic and equally crappy and terrible and shitty at all the languages at the same time. But I think like being self-taught, I actually, before I avoided terminal, my other thing I avoided is I would hard code everything, because my first paid code I ever wrote, aside from anything, was email templates. Like I learned building email templates because I was actually Colin, shout out Colin, who's here, actually got a lot of my questions. I was at a small agency and I thought email templates weren't that going to be that hard. And guys, there are a lot of like responsiveness things you have to learn. But it was like a lot of the just like styling of it, or a lot of like using Liquid for Shopify sites, like just changing, like tweaking the styling. And so I first felt very comfortable in that, but like JavaScript hurt my head for the longest time. So I avoided it. But like, it's so funny, like this like education development, because I do distinctly remember working on a project at my last role, and it was like a data project. You had to pull a API call in and clean up some data and then get it ready for running a model. And like Python's not really my favorite to work with APIs. I'm not very good at it. Like, I think it's kind of wonky if you have uneven data sets or messy data sets. So, but cleaning it up in JavaScript's really easy. So I definitely remember submitting this like Python notebook to like my manager, and he's like, why did you do this in Glitch first? And I was like, well, I didn't know how to do it in Python. So I did it in JavaScript. And then I did the rest of it. But like, I definitely, and I think that's, again, joining your roles where I'm most self-conscious is like my hacky workarounds. Fortunately, Brian hasn't bullied me too hard.
Brian?
Brian's like, Brian's chaos.
No. So Nnenna, yeah, you were gonna say something as well. I don't.
Oh yeah, it was just like along the same lines about that process of learning different things when you have to like build with these different languages, frameworks, or whatever. Is that I struggled with the difference between, and I think I still struggle with this, the difference between the language convention, like the conventional way of writing code in that particular language versus best practice, and if there is a difference between the two, and also the personal coding style of whoever is the one writing that code and creating that tutorial or showing you how to do something, trying to understand to be able to decipher the difference between those things when learning a new language, like maybe Go, or that's how it felt when I was first learning Python years ago. It's like I didn't know what to trust to know to then turn around and then know I was writing good Python code. Like, am I just copying the style of the person who is right next to me because I work with them? And so that is not easy, I think, to figure out. But and I hope I do figure it out at some point, though. But
I'm not counting on it. As I posted in the chat, I still get confused. Like sometimes I'm like, oh, this is a language, and I'm like, no, that's a framework. This is that's a library. They're in my brain. I know they're different things and they're used differently, but I can't. They're all the same to me. I know they're different. My brain can't put them in buttons like buckets.
Yeah, and I don't know if that matters that much to me. Sorry, I don't know, but like. A framework library doesn't matter. I got to use it. I got to use it to do something, and people are using it to do something. Let's get to the important part. But yeah, I remember for a while when people were debating about like what is React really, and it's But
all made up and no one matters.
Developers love to debate, especially now. We don't debate as much nowadays because most of us dropped off of X, but. That was the platform.
Now we're arguing about if we should be on X or not. Yeah, time out. Now we're just arguing about what debate we should be on, like what platform should we be on.
Yeah. Wait, are you all on X still?
I mean, I haven't deactivated my account, but I haven't actually posted that in over a year.
Not looked at it.
I'm like on there still, I'll admit, and like I go back and forth. I want to be on Threads. But like, I don't know. I made the mistake when I made my Threads account of like, I want to follow the same people on Instagram. Y'all, I have no filter on my Instagram follows. Like I follow like 8,000 people on Instagram. It's a problem.
Oh,
so that meant when I made my Threads account, I was like, I don't care about any of these things. I don't want like some people. This is a terrible take. Like this is maybe my ghost pepper take of the day. Some people should not do short form written content. Like some of the reality TV stars that I follow for the gossip should not. I don't care about your short form written content.
It's not their strong suit.
So,
but I want to. You can unfollow them, Erin.
But I have 8,000 and it auto followed them.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a mistake.
That was a.
Can you auto unfollow all of them and then start over?
I don't know. I've tried. I even looked up if there's an API. There's not when I last looked. I just cried a lot actually, and that's why I can't get into it. And like weirdly, like as people are saying, LinkedIn has become the one, but now I'm getting the DMs I used to get on Twitter on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
And I actually started this conversation in a couple different channels I'm in, like social channels, and I started a couple different ones just to get people's take of like, and I'm curious, like I know we're taking tangents here, but like while we're on this tangent of platforms, a LinkedIn request, how do you treat them? And like, how loosey-goosey are you with them? Because sometimes I feel bad because I'm like, I have no idea who the hell you are. But then I've also done it. And yeah, Cassie, I try Threads. I actually really did like Mastodon, and like I'm still on Mastodon a lot.
I did not check that. Am I even on that? I don't know.
And then
I don't.
Blue Sky.
I didn't see you. I saw you on Threads. No, yeah, That's what Blue Sky is for. It's purely a purely a shit posting platform. That's it. I mean, that's why I don't use it, because I'm like, I mostly want people's like links to good content and other tutorials and other crap, like useful stuff. I mean, I enjoy a good shit post as much as anybody, but like when your entire like platform seems to be about sharing shit posts, like that to me is like, okay.
Yeah.
I mean, it's fun for 5 minutes and then I'm like, but that's what I'm not on Blue Sky. I do think LinkedIn has become more useful and I use it more.
Yeah.
I'm pretty loose about letting people in if their title is something relevant to being a developer. I don't, if it says like anything that seems like they're going to immediately pitch me on something, then I don't say yes. Or if they send me an invite that says something that I'm like, okay, this person just wants to pitch me on something, then yeah, other than that, I let anybody in.
If anybody sends me a form, like trying to pitch me, I now have a form response.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, I have it like pinned and it's like, I just copy pasted it. And I'm like, I believe in building real relationships on platforms, and this isn't very authentic of you. And at least you could do your homework for 30 seconds and understand like actually what I'm about. And then I put like, here's top 5 links that here's things I've done in the past year. If you'd like to read more, if you read this and do your homework, I'm happy to chat with you. But like, if not, go read these things and get out of my hair.
Other way.
And I think like part of this is, I don't want to be like, it was like I was in machine learning, but like it was such a hype space that like I now have machine learning demos or talks to my name. And so they'll see that, or they'll see that I'm connected to a lot of people in that space. And it was so hypey that I got so many try our ML product. I'm like, I don't even work in that anymore.
Yeah. I got a lot of, and then so Henri asked, where am I posting for certified for CFE? And I'm not posting anything for anything, even for promotional purposes on X. I just can't get myself to do it. I'm sorry. I'm not judging anybody, but I'm just like, I feel like, when you're doing, like, I can't create content for some place that I feel is it's just, I can't get on board with the type of place that X has become. And so like, because they monetize my content. That's the whole point. That's what the platform sells, is the content that we're all creating. So that's where I'm like, I just can't do it. And I honestly, I had that problem with Facebook, and this is where like I'm hesitant, but I'm somewhat like gotten over it. I mean, I think Musk has shown us how bad things can really be. That I'm like, well, somebody wrote somewhere that Musk's great achievement is making us all be like, well, maybe Zuck isn't that bad.
Agreed.
I maybe take like a situational ethics approach to it, and because like I'm still on Facebook and I'm still active on Facebook, and a lot of the real like conversations about like this is, I formerly studied journalism. I studied media business and journalism and one of my biggest gripes in grad school, and I actually was at an alumni event for my graduate class last night. One of my biggest gripes is why some journalists take the holier than thou approach, and they get so hung up on morals that they forget about the end goal. And the end goal is to facilitate conversation or spread truth or do that stuff. So it's like, how do you, balance that? Like the reason I'm on Facebook is 9 times out of 10, you'll see like all my other stuff on there, but like I do stand-up comedy on the side. It is the only place you'll get booked. If you're not on Facebook, you don't have a Facebook page, and you're not in the right Facebook groups, you will not get booked as a comic. End of story.
Yeah. Yep. I mean, look, I'll be honest, like pulling everything from, particularly a year ago when I first decided to pull to just not post anything to, well, it was still Twitter at the time. It hurt. Like, it hurt CFE because it was harder to get people to come, because that was where developers still were. Now everybody's so dispersed, it kind of doesn't matter. And the engagement on X is crap lately anyway.
That's for sure.
Actually, honestly, the engagement on most of the platforms is mediocre at best.
Do you feel like the culture on LinkedIn and the way people share and what people share is changing now that it seems like more people have moved away from places like X and are all at least, they're using LinkedIn more? Because I'm seeing a lot more casual posts now that are not professional related.
Yes.
And I guess, people are really excited to show their dogs and their Christmas decorations. And, so I'm like wondering, is the culture changing now?
Yeah, I think it is. I think LinkedIn's become more of an important destination, even for developers. Used to be like, I mean, I think for the most part, a lot of people were like how I treated it previously, which was that it's like I went on there every once in a while, like maybe once every few weeks, to approve or deny a bunch of connection requests and then hopped right back off, and that was it. But now, like, it's really active. So I think they're there. I hate to say it, Cassidy, but Threads, the tech community on Threads has gotten a lot better and is starting to feel more like early days Twitter. But Blue Sky.
Not my account. My account is telling you about
not your account. And Mastodon's actually, like, I think Mastodon's pretty decent, but it's not as it's not as busy. But like, you will still get you can still find it on. Unfortunately, now, like, you got to be a little bit on all of them, I think, to do anything, I guess. And Colin, it is still Zuck, and I know, but it's like,
I'm on Threads. I'm on Threads, but I use it. It's all fitness content that comes my way, and like, that's the main thing that I talk about on Instagram a lot. Is just like, hey, everybody, get up, move your body, drink some water, just eat your grapes and apples and carrots. Like, that's a lot of the things that I talk about there. And so then that funnels into my experience on Threads, which is just all about health and wellness. And I'm not mad at it, but totally different experience.
My technical content bombs on Threads /Instagram.
I've treated Threads as like totally different from Instagram, and maybe that's because my Instagram was private. Because years ago, when my son was in middle school, like, some of his friends found my Instagram and started digging through like old photos of him, and just anyway, it became an issue. So I just privated my account since then. But then, when I created my Threads account, I didn't have a lot of, like, the only people I follow are like comedians and stuff like that for the most part. It's, including Erin. But like, so all my Threads is pretty much tech, and I didn't have a lot of transfer over from Instagram. Maybe that's why I'm having a different experience, but
I don't have kids, but I do have a story. I do adjunct teach sometimes. And I do have an embarrassing story of like my students finding my Twitter because and I don't think it's that bad. Like, but I was teaching, it was actually when I was teaching in Nevada, I was teaching like introduction to digital technologies, blah, 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 like 100 level required journalism class, or required is a lab, not even a class, to graduate. And they had to do digital investigation. So I'd be like, go find your thing, like, go find people that you look up to on the internet. What type of content are they producing, and what can this tell you about like their content strategy? Like, thinking about like content strategy. I had gotten out of a breakup recently at this time, and I had tweeted, does anybody else have a meltdown and scream to the Spice Girls in their car as they're eating a burrito? Or is that just me? Or something along those lines, like 30 minutes before this class started. And as the assignment, they would make like a board and copy paste images of things they found on the internet, or links, and I put it on a projection. And guess what first tweet someone found before that class?
Oh my goodness.
Freshman college student that was like, This is such a. Why did I?
Yeah. What did you do? How did you react?
I literally was just like, fair game. It's on the internet. Fair game.
Oh, my goodness.
But then I was like, that goes two ways. Once I said it goes two ways, then it was like they were like, all right. Because I did find out that some of them were subtweeting me, and I was like, y'all get smart, get good, or get good. And that's why I will never work undergrads again. Like undergrad freshmen terrify me.
Yeah, that's
also high school students. No.
That's not my ministry at all. I think that's someone else's calling, and I'm
not my calling. I know enough to know that is not my calling. Grad students though are great. But yeah, anywho, I know we're coming up on time here.
Yes, we are coming up on time. And it's been, it's like that we could obviously keep chatting all afternoon. It's been so much fun. But it's time for the pickle fact of the day. So, Nnenna, obviously we're pickle themed here, playing off the DevRel-ish, and the idea of DevRel-ish wasn't really about pickles. It was about being like, there's a lot of DevRel roles out there, and they're not all like DevRel, like they have different titles and things like that. And so it was DevRel-ish roles, but we have some fun with the relish aspect, and we have a monthly, since we do this monthly, pickle fact, and Erin is in charge of our pickle fact since she is our resident actual fermenter. Is that what's the term? Or pickler?
Yeah,
I don't know what the term is.
I would say fermenter. Is that the right?
Yes, and then
professional
of course,
mold roller.
Colin's already jumping in with the pickle puns. This is also a monthly thing. All our audience jumps in with lots of pickle puns. Okay, Erin, before we run out of time, let's hear this pickle fact.
So this pickle fact takes us back to 1893 at the Chicago World's Fair. The Pickle King, I don't know if that is a self-given title or a title that someone gave him. H.J. Heinz dispatched a few local boys to tempt fairgoers with a free gift. And so he actually was handing out picklers at the World's Fair, and pickle pins that have now become a collector's, like they've actually been auctioned off for like $1 bajillion or something. I don't know the actual number. It just said auctioned off for high amounts of wealth. And it is actually one of the most successful marketing gambits, and it is attributed to the founding of the H.J. Heinz Company.
Oh.
Wow. Yeah, man. Heinz does have relish, right?
They have relish, yeah. But it actually was one of the biggest things, and he got involved with lobbying efforts. And he is one of the reasons why we have food safety regulations outside of the jungle. That's a whole nother book and a rabbit hole we could go down to. But he lobbied for new food safety regulations. But the reason behind it was not so kind and awesome. It was because his competitors couldn't sell similar products with additives.
That's what happens, You start off as just a fermenter or whatever, like you, Erin, and then suddenly you're working for Big Pickle. And yep. Anyway, I think Erin, since apparently you can just give yourself a title like Pickle King, you should be the Pickle Queen.
I'm self-nominating Pickle Queen.
Yeah,
I love that.
Well, yeah, we're all in agreement here. So done.
Voted.
Hereby Pickle Queen.
Next time I'll have a sash.
We need to get you some kind of funny little crown.
I need a tiara that says Pickle Queen. This is my figure out how to do this.
You need an outfit too. It needs to be a certain color and like style. I'm
don't let Big Pickle put you in a pickle.
Pickle ruins everything. All right. Well, this was so much fun. I want to thank you, Nnenna, for coming on. Thanks everybody in the audience for joining. We will be back next month. Actually, I've got the next couple of shows already booked up, so look for that on cfe.dev as well. Also, just in case you're curious, we just announced the jam.dev will be back next month, so that's our biggest event of the year, coming January 24th, 25th. If you're interested in web dev or even dev, if you're interested in Jamstack, check that event out as well. and look for all the upcoming events on cfe.dev. Until next month, thank you all for joining. Bye.
Bye, friends.
Bye.